Would you mind telling me whose brain I did put in?
And you won't be angry?
I will not be angry.
Abby someone.
Abby someone. Abby who?
Abby normal.
This is the Abby Normal Podcast, here to tell you that you're weird, and that's normal. Throughout my childhood, my family moved 7 times, just within the same region, but a different house and a different neighborhood. And that was kind of fun. New kids to play with, new bedrooms to organize and decorate. We went with the flow, depending on how my dad's business was doing, and my parents alternating being in school. Life has been a little bit different for my kid. We've moved much less, and one of the reasons for that is the cost of living in the San Francisco Bay Area. If you find a place where your family fits with good rent, you settle in and you hold onto it for as long as you possibly can. We lived in a 1-bedroom train car style apartment until my kid was 11, at which point we decided it was time for everyone to have bedrooms with doors. And believe me, those doors came just in time. Anyway, shelter is a human necessity, and dare I say a right in the US of A, but we don't all want or need the same kind of shelter. So today we're going to talk to 2 friends who chose to give up that stable shelter and go on the road. First up is Jen. So your daughter recently started public school.
So she did K through 2, so 3 years of public, and then we homeschooled for 2 years.
And why did you make that decision to do homeschool?
Because I sold everything we owned and moved us into a van.
So it was more about your dream for your life versus like educational concerns.
It was both, I guess. So I was like, it would be so great. Like, I really want to homeschool her. It would be so great to have that time. I wanted more of a like unschooling experience. I wanted more of, traveling and free thinking. I wanted her to learn history through actually being in places. And so that was part of it. The other thing that came up really strongly that was frustrating and definitely pushed me toward homeschooling was, like, in kindergarten, I took her out for a week and we went to DC and we spent a week touring DC. We did all of the monuments. We talked about history. It was amazing. And we came back and the school sent me a letter threatening to sue me because she'd missed too many days of school as a kindergartner. And without my permission or even notifying me that they were going to do so, they took her out of lunch and sat her down. She was 6 years old. And read her a policy, an attendance policy, and had her sign it.
Oh my gosh.
And then mailed it home to me with her kindergarten, like, Rory, like, signature on it. Like it was an official thing.
Oh.
And I was livid.
Yes.
And so that was really, like, a lot of instances like that over the years with them where I was like, they didn't have a policy for travel. And I was like, she learned more that week than anything you would have taught her. And I get it. And I know all the things behind it. Like, that's
sure.
As an ex-teacher, I know they get paid for the days that kids are in the seats. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that that's where they need to be most of the time. So I finally decided to just take her out.
What kind of adventures did you have?
I sold literally everything that we owned other than like 5 boxes of stuff. We moved into a camper van and we drove around the country for 4 months, which was not enough time. We should have taken longer.
Yeah.
We did 14,000 miles in 30 states.
Whoa, 30? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. So that's how we started that. And we were doing a social justice project, interviewing people who were homeless and telling their stories online. And so we were doing
where can we find and listen to those?
So they're written. They're all written.
Oh, okay.
And so it was a photography and written stories, and they're all hosted on the Facebook page, Just Say Hello Tour.
Just Say Hello Tour.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep, the Just Say Hello Tour. Mm-hmm. So we did that, and that was really cool. We had a fair amount of press, and it was fun. It was like a fun project. And it was something that she really never wanted to do.
Oh.
And was very pushed outside of her comfort zone.
Yeah. What was the impetus for doing that project?
I was a social worker for years, and I worked with people who were homeless and chronically addicted. And then when I left social work, I started working with a man, Rex Holbein. He started a nonprofit in Seattle called Facing Homelessness. His motto or slogan is just say hello. And so I started doing volunteer work with them, and kind of from the ground up helped to launch that nonprofit. And I just really loved the work that he was doing. The idea that what we really needed was to get people to drop their judgments and see the human who was sitting there, and not all the stories they had about that human was really powerful for me. And I had always had this dream of telling the stories of people who are homeless. And then honestly, one night I read Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic, and I had the idea while reading it, and it wouldn't go away. I've never wanted to live in a camper van. I've never been that person. I'm not a minimalist. I don't want to live in a van. And I decided that it was like the universe and like the great muse, and sold everything I owned and jumped in a van.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it doesn't sound like you regret it.
I don't regret it. I would do it very differently.
Okay. What would you do differently?
Everything. I'd do everything differently. Yeah. I would do everything differently. It was a tough experience. We went way too quickly. My schedule was ambitious for an incredibly ambitious person. And so, I didn't plan enough downtime. I didn't plan enough recovery time.
Yeah. I mean, especially with a, third grader at that point?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And so I think there was a lot of things that just didn't get planned out well that made it emotionally challenging.
Yeah. So what did you do right?
It's a really good question. I still love the stories, and I love the experience of seeing everything. You know, there are just some things that she doesn't understand now how special they are, but I do. You know, we went to the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. We saw a Broadway show in New York. We went to Nashville and the Grand Ole Opry. Went to the Grand Ole Opry. You know, like these things that are really iconic and important, I think, to experience from a historical standpoint were really beautiful. And we definitely learned a lot about each other through the process.
Yeah.
And she did grow a lot through it. Fast growth is always painful, and it was painful, but it was a lot of growth. So, and I do think that I don't know, like there's this idea that all humans are valuable and worthwhile that kind of got drilled into her head that I appreciate that she has now.
So we both have only children, and only children can be spoiled.
Totally. Yep.
So any opportunity to expose her to the fact that she's not the central point of the universe, and there's other people that are also important and need your compassion and need your attention, like all of that is just nothing but value for her.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that we found out later, they didn't know at the time, was she had internalized this really intense fear that we were going to be homeless.
Oh.
Which made sense because we were kind of homeless in that we were living in a van.
Right.
And that was meant to be part of the experience. But also, like, I kept saying, like, this is part of my messaging, and this is true. Anyone could be homeless at any time.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Yep. And while that is true.
Absolutely.
The vast majority of Americans live one paycheck away from a landslide of problems that lead to eviction and lead to homelessness. And I wanted people to know that it's not, it's not always the cause of drugs or alcohol, and even when it is, like there's so much pain and suffering and stories behind it. But she definitely did develop this huge narrative around us becoming homeless, and then carried it in fear the whole time that we were gone. So that I was unaware of until the end, really.
Poor baby.
Yeah.
Oh.
it's interesting the ways in which, and of course now, I mean, like that one of the things I do now is watch people's stories about things. And it's interesting the ways that she would see things or like develop a narrative or a story, and then hold it and keep it secret, really.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm most grateful about from the tour is that we developed an entire thing. When a lot of this came out and a lot of these stories that she'd had, there were more. That was the hardest one. But one of the things that we developed was a shorthand of like, when she's holding things in, I can kind of tell now, and I'll call her on it when she doesn't want to tell me. I'm like, this, like, it's going to make it harder, right? Like, if you just tell me, then we can work through it. And so I think we developed some trust around that I hope will be beneficial through these next however many years until we kick them out of the house.
What are we down to? 6?
7. Coming up on 6.
Yeah, coming up on 6. She's a fall baby too, right?
I have definitely said like Rory's going to go one of two ways, but I think that one potential way is that she ends up like in a picket fence house with 2.5 children and a golden retriever. And she's like baking them cookies while she yells at them, "You don't know how good you have it." My mom sold everything we owned when I was 8 and moved me into a van. Like, she used to make me get up at 5 a.m. to walk to the top of a mountain for dance parties.
Yep.
We would sit around the table and cry and talk about our feelings. Aren't you so glad I'm not like that? Like, you know, all of that.
Straight up rebellion.
Yep.
Her husband's in a button up with the tie.
Totally.
Bye, honey. She's wearing an apron. The whole
100%.
The whole deal.
Yeah. Betty Crocker.
Today, Bridget is back. You might remember her from the Meet Me in the Chat Room episode where she described her worst online dates. During her childhood, Bridget had a unique living situation that she's going to tell us all about. But for a little background, Bridget's parents got married when they were 19. They had her older brother Brian, then Bridget, and finished 7 years later with her younger brother Gene. They moved around a lot, and they did so via non-traditional methods. As an example, when Bridget was 2 or 3, they moved from Chicago to Missoula, Montana in a mail truck. Here's how Bridget would describe her dad.
If you can draw a perfect square box and then go about 800 degrees to the right, that's kind of where my dad lives. So he never does anything that's conventional. His mind just doesn't work that way. He looks at efficiencies and he just doesn't care what people think.
In Montana, her parents were non-traditional students living in married student housing, and they both completed degrees in business. Her dad got a job in radio, and they moved to Birmingham, Alabama just in time for Bridge to start kindergarten. The mail truck is gone already.
Mail truck's gone. So he bought a 66-passenger school bus, took the seats out, put all of our furniture in it, and we moved there. Easy enough. We were there for a year. I learned how to read there. I got made fun of. There were lots and lots of stories. I had nicknames like you would never believe. I was very proud of them. I came home during my first week of school and I said, "Mom and Daddy, guess what? All the kids, they have a nickname for me." My parents said, "Oh, that's odd. What's your nickname? That's so fun." "Well, they called me a honky." Well, Bridget, that is yes.
From Alabama, they moved to Colorado where her dad ran a newspaper. At the end of the school year, they were ready to move on, but not 100% sure where they wanted to land. Her dad had interviews in New Mexico and Idaho, but they couldn't afford to transport the whole family to these locations and put them up in hotels for a significant length of time. Ultimately, her dad went back to school, but in the meantime, they ended up on the road. Remember that old school bus? It gets a serious upgrade.
He didn't know what he was going to do, so he decided to convert it into a motorhome. He painted the inside of the 66 passenger school bus. He painted it a beautiful tan color, complete with wood paneling. But it was really thin particle board.
Okay.
That would kind of half separate these rooms, if you will, all the way back.
Okay.
So there was like a small level of privacy. You had the walkway that was open all the way back. At the front of the bus, you had, if you walked up the stairs and you looked immediately to the left, there was a sink, and underneath it was a VCR and a TV that was run by a generator in the back of the bus. There was a stove top and a little refrigerator. And then on the right side was a full to a queen size mattress bed, if you will. It was vinyl cover because during the day you'd put pillows on it so that you could that was kind of like a seating area.
Right.
But then at night it would turn into a bed for my parents.
Sure.
Then the next section back, Gene, my younger brother, was 2. He had a crib that was kind of built into the right side of the wall. And then on the left side, it was like some mechanical stuff. Then one section back, we had a guest area. It was like another full-size bed. And across from that was the bin. It was like a catch-all. It had a rod. So all of the clothes that hung were there, all of their clothes, shoes, backpacks, like anything that you could possibly store. Was kind of a storage area, but it was kind of exposed. And then next to that on the right or on the left side was the toilet. And then there was one more like wall partition and a bed on each side for Brian and myself. And then you could remove that during the day and it turned into a table. So you could sit around it during the day. And then you could, read or do your math or whatever we had to do during the summer. We always had things that we would have to add and subtract the phone book, multiply it, stuff like that, just to kind of keep up with, studies and stuff.
They ended up actually back in Colorado for her 3rd grade year.
If anybody has ever lived near Greeley, Colorado, oh my God, there's a slaughter factory 60 miles from there. And the smell of Greeley was, it was wretched. That's also the place where I refused time and time again to clean my room sufficiently. We lived 3 doors down from my school, Scott School Elementary. So one particular day I came home from school and literally all of my bedding and every toy and piece of clothing was on the front lawn. And my dad was in the middle of throwing it out as all of the kids were walking by. I was mortified. And he said, well, if you don't respect your stuff enough, I guess I don't either. It's trash, and this is where it will be. I was fairly tidy after that.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, that was a lesson.
After 3rd grade, they spent the summer traveling in the bus and then landed in Idaho for 4th grade.
It was the only time I went to Catholic school. I begged my parents to go to Catholic school 4th and 5th grade.
Why? Why were you into it?
I just wanted it. I loved it so much. I loved religion. I would get up and go to church on my own. It was the best. I got great grades. It was a private school. My mom, she like helped out with the payroll there or something. It was awesome. I loved it.
Back on the road again, she landed in Evergreen, Colorado for 6th and 7th grade, where she met her best friend, Aspen.
The whole family was just massively talented. Really, really awesome family.
In 8th grade, she ended up back in the Columbine area in Denver. Then did 9th grade not too far away in Helena, where she stayed for high school. This transition was the most difficult.
I had been in softball over the summer, and I was trying to catch a fly ball in outfield, wrapped my leg around somebody and broke my ankle.
Ooh.
And gained about 30 pounds.
Oh.
I was at my aunt and uncle's house, and they allowed candy and sugar and treats, and something that my parents never allowed. It was 2 extremes. And so I ended
You went
up,
insane.
Yep. I sure did.
You were just like,
Oh my gosh. It was all of the Rice Krispie treats and, like anything I could get my hands on. And I didn't understand that, not being, because I had always been physically active. I didn't understand what it would do to a 14-year-old body or 13-year-old body.
Yeah.
So I showed up at this new school for the first time ever as the fat kid. And I wasn't fat, but I was not thin, and I was a tall kid. I was one of the older kids. I started school. My parents kept me until I was like one of the older kids.
Right.
So it was big all the time. And when I was getting registered at the office, there was a kid, Rusty Linden. I'll never forget that. Rusty
MFer.
Linden. Walked in and he was in trouble. And he goes, "Oh, great, another fat kid." And I had never been called fat. And it devastated me. So that was my big transition. And then I ended up kind of going down a little bit of a rabbit hole. So
that's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened? You get depressed and
that started my November 1st of turning 14 was the first day I think I was watching Maury or some show. I was home, quote unquote, sick, and I had just eaten like all of my Halloween candy or my brother's or something. And I went in the bathroom and stuck a toothbrush down my throat. And that was the beginning of 30 years. Yeah. Yeah. That's again, another story for another day. But
no kidding. For about 7 years, Bridget and her family spent every summer on the bus. And that nomad life sounds pretty fun to me. Here's little Bridget's perspective.
My dad would joke that we would stay at some of the finest hotels in the U.S. We wouldn't stay in them. We would stay in the parking lot. He would make friends with the staff, and we would oftentimes be able to throw our laundry in with the hotel laundry. We had to get it done somehow. Oh my God, the number of times we'd go to the pools that we weren't supposed to be. If anybody asks you, you're in room 312. You're in room 2286. If you see anybody who looks like they work there, go the other way. That's how we would clean up. I cleaned up. Sometimes there were sprinklers in a park. I can't tell you how many times I washed my face and brushed my teeth in a Denny's bathroom, because it was, you, in order to have the running water, the generator would have to be on, and that was kind of a thing. It didn't always work. It was very loud. It was kind of cumbersome. So sometimes behind a gas station, there's a little spigot, I don't want to put my head under there. It's cold. Just stick your head under there. You're still shampoo. Yep. Water fountains, all sorts of stuff.
I picture you guys as being so close with all 5 of you packed into a bus.
Oh, we were close.
So
we didn't always like each other, but we were in close proximity. Yes. Thank God it was a time before all of the technology, because we talked. We were spoken to as adults. We were treated as children insofar as play was concerned. We were told to go play, and we had to make up games, and it was a lot of creativity because we didn't have the means for, all the gadgets and doohickeys, but there were long stretches of time that we were on the road. I went through all of my Ramona books like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Oh, loved that Ramona.
Love them.
We would sing. There are so many songs from that time that just immediately will take me back to that Southwest, driving down the road and looking up at my dad I would sometimes at night when the sun was going down, the bottom 2 stairs on the bus would get really warm. And so I could kind of snuggle into that little stairway. So I could look to my right, and you were looking out at, the bus doors. So they were windows. And if I looked to my left, there was kind of like this soft backlight, and I could see my dad driving, with his giant wheel. He'd be blaring anything from the Eagles to Boz Scaggs to the Beatles. I mean, they were young, so, it was whatever was on the radio too. I know all of the songs from that era, Huey Lewis and the News, I mean, like, it was whatever was playing. We went to a lot of drive-ins. We'd have to park him back, surprise,
Right.
or off to the side. But yeah, we hung out, truly. We'd play games, Yahtzee and Uno, and that's what I knew.
Yeah. It
So.
feels magical to me, and it feels safe. Like when you talk about like wedging yourself in the wormhole and like looking at your dad, like it feels safe. Did it feel that way to you, or were there times where you were like,
oh, no.
No.
There was no such thing as not. I always felt safe. My dad he is a force. When he walks into the room, he commands a room. He got us into and out of so many situations, unthinkable situations. Now, if you asked my mom the same thing, I don't know that she would have the same answer. Sure. I felt very safe. I do remember one night, I think we had gotten in trouble. We were in a national park or something, and we were trying to, pull off to the side of the road to sleep. And a couple of the rangers had come by, and they were like, you can't stay here. So my dad had found a service road, and it was raining. We started winding up this road, and there was a mudslide.
oh,
And he could not turn around. It was very narrow, and the road was washing out. I remember kind of the amber lights in back of the bus. I could see there was a wall next to us from the mountain, and then there was just a cliff on the other side. And then I heard my mom start yelling, my babies, you get my babies off this bus right now. And then there was kind of this low talking, because she never raised her voice. They didn't raise their voices. They just didn't. My ears definitely perked up, and we had been told to go to bed earlier that night, so you couldn't get out of bed. Jeez. But Dad said, kids, get up to the front of the bus, right? And so, we were up, lickety split, and out of the bus, and we're standing I think it was still raining, and he had to literally make a run for it. I mean, what choice did he have? The bus was sliding.
Did you lose the bus?
We did not lose the bus.
What happened?
I know. He made a run for it, and he got around the corner, and he kind of, slid sideways, and he just gunned it. I think he over torqued and, kind of like got his way out of it. I mean, he had an incredible amount of driving experience. If you think about it, he spent years on the road in so many different types of situations. So he knew how to navigate it, but there comes a time when somebody else is looking out for you at that point. In some of those situations, we were in a few of those. Yeah.
I have one important question. You have to go pee in the bus. Is there a toilet?
Okay, so...
And can you use it?
These are all very valid questions. And there was actually an evolution.
Trial and error.
Yes. So initially and through the entire process, the answer is yes, you could go to the bathroom. Initially, for the first, I don't know how long, year or two, or it could have been 5. I don't know. This is my kid brain. We hadn't installed a septic tank yet. So basically, you would go to the bathroom, and then you would have to look behind towards the back of the bus because, it has that one emergency window
Yes.
that in the back.
Uh-huh.
And you'd have to make sure that there were either A, no vehicles behind you, or B, no vehicles that were close enough that would catch the contents
No.
as you
No.
pushed
No.
the flush button, stepped on the flush button, and then it would be gone. And it's like one of those things that was like, it's like a train wreck. It's like you had to watch it, like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I saw that. That was mine.
Oh.
Super gross. And what was the worst was when you'd go and you were in traffic.
Right. And then it would just have to sit there,
Yep.
right? You just
And
wait.
it would slosh.
No.
Yes. And sometimes it would get pretty full. If you were in a city, like
Right.
you'd have to find a parking lot. And it'd be like, dump it, get rid of it. Go, go, go. There was a lot of that.
So so it would just be like Megan family feces just throughout the state.
But yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
right.
Trademarks in every state.
Okay, and then my second question about this topic is like, what is the privacy situation? Like,
None.
you just have to like shit in front of your family.
Well, kind of, because you have those like little partition. Remember the
Yeah, right.
Your
The like
little
waist high
particle,
partition.
your like particle board.
Mm-hmm.
No, it did go the entire height from the bottom of the floor
Okay.
up to the ceiling.
Uh-huh.
And it was just cut, because a bus is kind of rounded at the edges.
Yeah.
At the top it's not a square, it kind of rounds out. So he had to kind of cut along the edges, but it did go the entire height of
Okay.
yeah, from
That's good.
from bottom to
I
top.
was just for some reason picturing short walls and you having to just like make eye contact with
No.
your mom.
No, there was
while
no,
this is
no.
happening.
And trust me, no one wanted to be there. Now, I will totally call my little brother out on this one. So Gene, he was like 2.5. You get on a bus and they have the windows where you can take your 2 index fingers and insert them into a little slot in it. You can open a window or close it, right? But they were kind of at eye level and higher if you're sitting, kind of, they start at your shoulder and they go maybe 3 inches above your head, right? So total of a foot or so, 12-inch windows. Well, Gene would sometimes get bored, and he was getting potty trained during this time.
No.
So he learned his own special way of going to the bathroom. We would oftentimes find him, we'd be like, where is Gene? What is he doing? And you'd walk back and he would be standing on the toilet, feet facing backward, looking out the window, pooping, just totally going like a small, tiny animal. Like,
Okay. So he's standing on the toilet, looking out the window.
facing backwards with like a huge piece of poop. Like, just
Is the poop also out the window, or
no,
it's just
it's
dangling down
it's
into
dangling.
the toilet?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It'd be a dangler for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
That
He
sounds
became
like,
a pretty good aim.
yeah, that's good times.
But he was bored. I mean,
Right,
what else are you going to do?
100%.
What are you going to
Yeah,
stare at? I got
right.
the window behind me
Yeah.
or nothing. So,
Window. All about window.
absolutely.
I want to know what Bridget thinks of her bus adventures now. How did the time on the bus shape her?
That's a great question because I think that shaped a lot of things for me,
Yeah.
both good and bad. But I choose at this point to really hone in on the positives of what it brought me. On one hand, I don't know what it feels like to have roots. I don't know what it feels like to grow up in a house and have things, right? But You throw me to the wolves, you throw me into any situation, into a room, and I will pick up on people's interests and who they are and quickly be able to assess and determine what their need is or who they are in a way, enough to where I can be conversational for sure, but also it's really helped me with leading teams, with being able to hire people who are, and not be afraid of being with people who are very different from me, who think differently than me. It allows me to be okay with, nobody likes feeling uncomfortable, and change is uncomfortable and growth is uncomfortable, but I have that resource, that toolbox that I can reach into and become that person again that just understands, hey, it's all an experience.
Right.
You know, we're here. We've got one chance to do this. And so when I get into places like I am today, where I'm like, yay, I'm unemployed, but I'm afraid to take that step forward, that's when I really need to dig into that toolbox and to say, all right, but you've been here before and you've done this before and you can do it again. And you know what? There's no such thing as failing. And if you do, you're just failing forward. But the only way that you're not going to grow and you're going to regret is if you don't do anything. So just take the step forward. Just do something.
Bus is bound for Niles Bend Harbor. The ladies wear perfume.
It's so hard because my kid is in 6th grade right now. So this year she started middle school. And, you know, I'm like open-minded about where we might relocate. But kind of my primary driver is like, what's best for my kid? And so I'm like, man, she's happy right now. We have a good community. Like, she's comfortable. And I would like hate to pull her out and put her somewhere where she's going to be uncomfortable, where it's going to be hard and challenging and she's not going to know people. Like, as a parent, it feels mean. But then if I look at it from your perspective, it's like, well, it's a good, you know, growth opportunity for her.
And here's the thing.
It's hard.
So remember that time that you asked me if I ever felt unsafe? You, as the parent, you are in the driver's seat. It absolutely 100% matters, and really only matters how you package it. If you can make this about you guys, it can't be about her. That's not true, right? And she'll see through it. We wanted to make this move, but we wanted to make sure you are going to be okay. Well, it's not up to her, right? And she's going to be okay. That's the brilliant thing about kids, is they're resilient. If it's something that you guys want to do, then she will too, if you can package it.
Right.
You know, what's important to her? Is it her bedroom? Is it the fact that she's going to be within walking distance to school? Is it that there's going to be gymnastics around the corner? Whatever it is,
Right.
you know, you find those benefits and let her know that she is part of this, and that this is, you know, that this was a family consideration for everybody involved. And then you just get excited and you move forward with it. And you let it know that, you know, you're honest, and you let her know that, hey, it can be scary. But I think one of the biggest things that resonated with me, because I had a couple of struggles, you know, when I moved into a couple of my schools. What was really cool was that, again, Dad, sales guy, he sat me down and he would say, here's the really, really cool thing. Remember that time in 5th grade when you were taking your history class and you farted and everyone heard it and you were mortified? Yeah, Dad. Thanks for bringing it up. Nobody at this new school knows that you farted. Nobody knows that. Nobody knows that you got into a fight with Renee, the most popular girl in the school. Nobody knows that you tripped up the stairs and your dress, flew up, and you get to reinvent yourself if you choose to.
Yeah.
You get to be whoever you want at this new school. You get a fresh start. And how many people can say that? That is amazing. Clean slate, no farts.
Fart free.
Fart free. Absolutely. No farts on your record.
So what's amazing about this story is that you love your parents still.
Absolutely. They're the best.
What about your brothers?
Yes,
we don't.
absolutely.
We don't have to put it on the podcast if you hate them. I'm
No,
just
I
wondering.
love them so much.
Okay.
They're the best.
That's good.
Yeah.
So you're the middle child.
Yes.
Do you have middle child syndrome?
1,000,000%. Yes. Absolutely. So the good thing, I guess the only saving grace that I can say is that I was the only girl.
Right. So you got some special things.
I got some special things.
because you were a girl.
Yeah. And my parents absolutely refused to treat any of us differently. At least I can say for myself, I never felt it. There was never favoritism. And we would absolutely try and corner them, with our mind games. We would, okay, so you're in a house, it's burning, it's on fire. You can take mom out and the dog and one child. Who do you take? And inevitably, you'd think, oh, I'm going to get him this. Okay, so you're in a raging river.
Right.
And we've all been swept away. And every single time it would always come back to the same answer with my parents. And they'd say, we would drown all of you, but we'd make sure we keep the other one. I'd keep your mom, I'd keep your dad, because together we can make more of you. Fuck. We're just not going to win here, are we?
Wow.
Yeah.
They're smart.
I know.
Smart.
I know. Rude. Just say me.
It's me, damn it.
Just say me.
It's me. Are you having too much family closeness time like Bridget did? Or maybe you're yearning to travel the country in a van and have a wild adventure. I feel both of these. And I also feel very thankful for this duplex that I call home. It's a time of mixed feelings. And as we raise our heads up and peer toward the end of this time of shelter, I also think of what Bridget's dad said. We can reinvent ourselves. We have a clean slate. We can start fart free. We have 3 tracks, Blue Sky Blues and Countryside Summer Joyride by Kara Square, and Tracing My Steps by Tobias Weber.